back to another video in this week's Java tutorials, Java data structure tutorial. I always get that one wrong. Okay, so coming off of our last video, we gave ourselves a visual demonstration as well as a real life example of a queue. We talked about what we implement, that we have to implement an instance of a class for queues. And we created a simple queue. So we talked about Walmart, and we talked about the things that you get from Walmart, right? So this next video is going to be us kind of working, playing around using the items in our queue. So we're going to talk about 4 methods, and we're going to use an iterator to print out the items, and we're going to talk about the differences between each of our methods. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So I want to give us a little bit more practice in creating queues. So I'm going to get rid of all of this and create another queue. So queue, again, it's going to be string. This time, I guess we could do line at Walmart, but that doesn't sound very fun. What is another thing? Oh, we could stand in line to order food at a restaurant, right? Because usually that makes sense. But you usually stand in line to order at a less fancy restaurant. Let's go with Chick-fil-A. So not like one of those super fancy sit down and waiters bring you a menu, not that. So Chick-fil-A is equal to new. And remember, we're implementing the linked list class. So we're creating an instance of it. New linked list string. And then semicolon. All right, so for our Chick-fil-A, first thing we need to do obviously is add things, right? This Chick-fil-A, we actually need to order things there. Chick-fil-A dot add. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I don't know if you guys are in that area, but some Chick-fil-A's have like TikTok or Instagram accounts where they post some cool stuff. I'm pretty impressed. Okay, so first thing that I always get is the original chicken. I spelled that wrong, definitely. I could tell. Original chicken sandwich. And then I also get their waffle fries. I don't know why Chick-fil-A waffle fries just taste so much better than normal fries. I don't even know why. And now that's all I order because that's enough for me to eat. I mean, have you seen their waffle fries? They're gigantic. But let's pretend that we need to add like 3 more things to our to our queue. So we're also going to add, I've seen them do this before. It's like a mac and cheese. I don't know if you could order mac and cheese as a side or something, but they definitely have. Chick-fil-A.add. One more thing, let's go ahead and get some chicken minis. Oh my gosh, that was such a middle school thing, but chicken minis are like the best things ever. Like the bread is like honeyish, so it tastes so good. And the chicken nuggets are obviously yummy. So chicken minis, and last but not least, we're gonna get a milkshake. So let's go ahead and get a strawberry milkshake. I know they have the different like secret flavors like berries and cream or like orange creamsicle or whatever, but we're going to stick with strawberry milkshake. So there we go, guys. We have our queue, and we have a queue with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items in it. So now it's time for us to go ahead and start playing around with our items. So the first 2 methods that I want to introduce to you guys are element and peak. Now these 2 are super, super similar, and they do the same thing. In like, if you just eyeball it, they do the same thing, but they are a little bit different though. So I do want to show you this. So let me go ahead and print both of them out and then see what happens. So system.out.println, Chick-fil-A dot element, and then system.out.println, Chick-fil-A dot, what is the name? Peak. There we go. So once I do this and I run my code, it's going to give me 2 values. However, notice that these 2 values are the exact same. So since last video, we learned about the order and we learned that this is first in, first out, can just generalize, that was weird. Pause the video and take a second to think, what do element and peak do? So once you've thought about that, element and peak both give you the first value of your queue, right? So they both gave you original chicken sandwich, which was both the first value. So let's take a quick look at my beautifully made graph. I mean, guys, I'm just so good at making these graphs. Okay, so element and peak, notice that they both get the first item of the queue and they do not remove the item. And how I can prove that to you is if I print out after I do element and peak, after I print Chick-fil-A and I run my code, you're going to see that nothing actually has been taken off. We have the same original queue. Okay, so these two, nothing changes. The first item of the queue has been given to you. However, the difference comes from when your queue is empty or when you do not have a first value. When you do not have a first value in your queue, your element function is going to throw an exception. So it's going to give you an error, basically. An exception is an error, right? And it's going to say no such element exception, that's what's going to happen for element. For peak, though, if the queue is empty, it's only going to return null. So it's not going to throw you an exception, no errors, but it's going to return null. So those are the two differences between element and peak. Those are important to remember. So throws exception if empty. Hopefully you guys should know what that means. This one, peak, is going to return null if empty. So that was the difference between Chick-fil-A element and Chick-fil-A peak. Now there are two other methods that I would like to introduce to you guys before we move on to our iterator, and that is remove and poll. Now remove and poll are similar, have a similar relationship to those like, what were the two? I've just blanked, element and peak. So if you guys have ever played the game where you do like the connections, we would say element to peak is equal to remove to poll, right? Okay, so these two are both going to be very similar. So I'm going to write it first, show you guys what it looks like in the code, and then I want you guys to tell me what you guys think happened. So I printed out Chick-fil-A here. This time though, instead, since these values actually disappear, I'm going to do something. I'm going to say string val1 is equal to Chick-fil-A dot remove, string val2 is equal to Chick-fil-A dot poll. All right, so basically these values that come from these functions, so whatever value gets removed or whatever value gets polled, I've currently saved them to a string variable and I'm going to print them out. Why am I doing this? You might ask. I'm doing this because I don't always want to just remove things or take a look at things at the top or remove things that are at the bottom. I want to maybe do something with it. So even though it might get removed from our queue, I would still like to take it out, save it to a variable. That way I can mess around with it later if I ever want to. So val1 and val2. So let's print these out and see what we get. What happens, guys? Run our code. And this is going to come after our printed queue. It's going to give me, okay, hold on. Looks like one of these I needed print ln instead of print. There we go. Let's do print ln here. I want everything to go on separate lines. So run it again, and it gives me, guys, it gives me original chicken sandwich and waffle fries. Okay, so, whoops, I just had a frog in my throat. So what is the difference between our, what are they? Our element and peak and our poll and remove. Let's go ahead and take a look. For element and peak, none of our items got removed. So since none of our items get removed in the queue, the first item always remains the same. However, for remove and poll, it gets the first item, that was a typo, my bad. It gets the first item of the queue and removes it. So by remove it and remove it, same thing. So notice, guys, that when I did assign this to a string value, the first item in the queue right now is still original chicken sandwich because nothing has been removed. However, as soon as I did this function, chicken sandwich got removed. It's no longer a part of my queue. So then when I run poll again, this value doesn't exist, so the first value is waffle fries. That is why value 2 is waffle fries. So now, just to prove to you that these values did actually disappear, I'm going to print out my Chick-fil-A Q, and you'll notice that both original chicken sandwich and waffle fries are both gone. So they're both have been disappeared. Not both have been disappeared, both disappeared. So see, original chicken sandwich, waffle fries, mac and cheese, chicken mini, strawberry milkshake. And after I did remove and pull, remove got rid of original chicken sandwich, pull got rid of waffle fries. So now I only have mac and cheese, chicken minis, and strawberry milkshake. One last thing for these differences, remove is similar to element. When the queue is empty, it throws an exception. When pull, for pull and peek, whenever the queue is empty, they return null. So these are similar concepts. Remove throws exception when empty, and pull is going to, what is this? Return null if empty. All right, wonderful. So we have done our methods. We've learned the differences between all of them. One last thing that I want to show you guys is how we can use an iterator to print out all of the items in our queue. There you go. I was looking for the word. So it's actually very simple, guys. All we do is we just create an iterator, and we are going to use a while loop to print it out. So the only thing that looks a little different here is this part. So we're going to say iterator. So it's no longer a string or an integer. It is an iterator. It's its own thing. So then we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call itr1. So iterator1 is equal to new iterator. Okay, and this is going to ask me for some sort of value. So it's just going to say, instead of saying new iterator, we're going to give it the specific thing we want to iterate. So instead of just creating a new iterator, we don't want to do this to create a function. I'm going to tell it exactly what I want to iterate because I already have something that I wanted to iterate through. Remember, iterate is kind of like cycle. So we're going to say Q, not Q. Our Q name was Chick-fil-A dot iterator. There we go. So Chick-fil-A.iterator, this function is basically saying that we already have a queue for you to iterate through. So now that we've created our iterator, we're going to use a while loop to print things out using our iterator. So inside of our while loop, remember, while loops were a long time ago, but essentially as long as the value inside of the parentheses is true, the while loops keeps going. So when the value inside of the parentheses is false, that's when our while loop stops. So this is where the has next function is going to come into handy. Has next is exactly what the name sounds like. Does the iterator still have something next? So for itr.hasNext, it's basically saying, does Q1 here have anything coming next? Is there still another variable next? Is there still another item next? So we're going to tell it to keep going while our iterator, while our Chick-fil-A queue still has the next item. So we're going to say itr.hasNext. So while our iterator still has a next value, we're going to print out the next value. System.out.println. So hopefully that makes sense. While our iterator still has a next value, we're going to print out the iterator's next value. Is it Chick-fil-A.next or itr.next? I'm pretty sure it's itr.next. Whoopsies. Okay, so this is going to be itr.next. Okay, so again, this is exactly what it means over here. And I just realized it's all itr1.next. So what this whole thing says over here is while our iterator still has a next value, print out the next value. Okay, so that's all our iterator is doing. So once again, before we run this one more time, over here, we've created our iterator using the Chick-fil-A queue, and we're saying while our iterator still has the next value, print it out. So run your code, and that's going to be the last few values after that. And everything else you see has been printed out in this array looking thing. But with our iterator, we printed mac and cheese, chicken minis, and strawberry milkshake out on its own line. Okay, and so now if I wanted, since we removed a couple of values, that's why there's only 3 values. If I wanted to, I could take my iterator and go ahead and put it right underneath the part after we added everything to it. So right underneath after we finished adding everything. And then when we run our code, it's going to give us original chicken sandwich, waffle fries, mac and cheese, chicken minis, strawberry milkshake. So everything was printed out on its own line using our iterator. Whew. Okay, guys, that was a lot. We talked about our Q methods. We learned about the differences between element, peek, remove, and pull. And we learned how to use an iterator and a while loop to print out all of our items onto a separate line, right? So that is it for this week's videos. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next week, okay? Bye, guys.